Just stay out of my life, my sister whispered after taking credit for my project. My family threw her a party. I wasn't invited. I stayed silent. Until the evidence spoke for me, and her celebration turned into an investigation. She stole my work. She got the award. But I got something better, the truth, and I didn't just get even. I got everything back with my name on it this time. I never asked to compete with my sister. If anything, I spent most of my life trying not to. She was always the golden child, the one with the spotlight naturally following her every move while I stayed in the wings, clapping politely. Growing up, it was Ashley who got the compliments at family gatherings. Ashley who got the better grades, though no one ever noticed they were only slightly better. Ashley who was born to lead, while I was quiet and creative, code for invisible. I didn't mind, not really. I liked my own lane. I liked building things that didn't need applause. But the moment I created something worthy of real recognition, something I had poured my entire self into, Ashley ripped it away from me like it was hers all along. It started with a university project, final year, capstone assignment, the kind of thing that could launch your career or ruin it. I spent 4 months building a prototype for a community-based health app. Not some cheap mock-up or vague wireframe. This thing worked. It sourced local data, partnered with regional clinics, and had a clean, intuitive interface that I coded from scratch. I didn't sleep properly for weeks. I ate noodles out of mugs and went half feral from caffeine and deadlines. But I loved it. I was proud of it. It was the first time I felt like I had created something that mattered. Ashley knew all about it. She visited my apartment once, uninvited as always, and watched me demo the app. I remember her tilting her head, pretending she didn't understand, then saying, "You should really simplify this or no one's going to get it." I shrugged it off. Ashley always needed to be the smartest person in the room. I didn't know. I couldn't have known that she was studying something adjacent in her own program and had been struggling to come up with a final project. It wasn't until award season that I realized the trap had already been set. There was a school-wide competition, the Innovators Showcase. Every year, the top final projects were entered into this event. It came with press, job offers, and a fat scholarship grant. I hadn't entered my project. I was waiting for feedback from my advisor. I wanted to refine it before going public, except it got entered anyway, and won, only not under my name. Ashley's smiling face was splashed across the department's newsletter, holding my app on a demo tablet like she had built it from scratch. They even quoted her on how she'd overcome technical hurdles and how her vision for accessible healthcare was shaped by her volunteer work. Volunteer work that never existed. Her coding ability? She didn't even know how to write a clean function. I felt my stomach drop when I read the article. My project, my work, my damn sleepless nights had been painted over with Ashley's PR polish. I confronted her. Of course I did. I went straight to her apartment, shaking with rage, holding my laptop like a weapon, the timestamps and code receipts pulled up and ready. She didn't even look surprised when I showed her. "You weren't going to do anything with it anyway," she said calmly like we were discussing leftover food in the fridge. "And I needed it more than you." I stared at her, stunned. "You stole from me." "No," she said. "I used what was available." There's a difference. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was laugh, a sharp, bitter, disbelieving sound. She really believed it. She had internalized this idea that my work was hers to borrow, to showcase, to succeed from. Like I was the warm-up act to her headliner. She even had the audacity to hand me a glass of wine like we were going to toast her win together. "I told Mom and Dad, by the way," she added. "They're proud of us. They think it's great we're both doing so well." United States, both. I left without another word. I didn't trust myself to speak. My hands were shaking and my chest felt hollowed out. The party happened that weekend. Our parents hosted a full celebration for Ashley. Balloons, banners, cake with Innovation Queen written in piped blue icing. My name wasn't mentioned once, not even a footnote. No one called, no one texted. My absence wasn't even acknowledged. I didn't go. I stayed in bed with the curtains drawn, trying to figure out if I was crazy, if maybe I was just too slow, too hesitant, and Ashley was the doer, the one who knew how to take advantage of opportunities. Maybe that was what success looked like in the real world, stepping over the quiet ones like me, who built things but didn't know how to sell them. I spiraled hard. I didn't leave my apartment for days. But then something shifted. A week later, the news broke. The first I heard of it was from a classmate, someone I barely knew outside of lectures. He messaged me a link without context, just, "Isn't this your app?" I clicked, confused. The page loaded slowly, as if building up the tension on purpose. It was a tech blog, mid-tier, semi-respected, the kind that tried too hard to sound edgy, but the headline hit like a thunderclap. University star plagiarizes peers code in award-winning project. I sat back in my chair, heartbeats suddenly loud in my ears. I read every word, twice. Some anonymous source had come forward and claimed Ashley hadn't written a single line of her capstone project. They said it was lifted, wholesale, from someone else's GitHub. My GitHub. Screenshots followed, code comparisons, dates, and commits. It was my work, all of it, even the earliest sketches. The article didn't name me, but it didn't have to. Anyone who knew us even slightly would put two and two together. By noon, my phone was on fire. Emails, DMs, even a message from the dean's office asking to set up a clarifying conversation. Suddenly, everyone remembered I existed. Ashley, meanwhile, went radio silent. For about 24 hours, it felt like justice was finally waking up. But it wasn't triumph I felt. It was rage, thick and acidic, because the only reason anyone cared now was because it had made noise. When I was screaming into the void, when I was standing in Ashley's apartment with the proof in my hands, no one listened. Now that it was messy and public and embarrassing for the school, they wanted my side. I didn't give them what they expected. At the meeting with the department head, I brought printed receipts. Not because I thought they'd question me, they already knew, but because I wanted them to squirm a little, flipping through pages that proved they'd crowned a thief. I submitted this same code to Professor Langley 3 weeks before the showcase. I said, "It's in his inbox. Check the date. Ashley saw it when she visited. She copied it. You gave her a trophy for it." The department chair winced. "We were under the impression you hadn't submitted anything." "That's because I was still refining it. I wanted it to be perfect. She wanted it to be hers." They didn't argue, there wasn't much to say. A panel was formed, a review was promised. Ashley's award was under reconsideration. That was the phrase they used, like maybe there was a chance she hadn't stolen it all, despite the mountain of proof. I walked out numb. It wasn't enough, not nearly. The fallout spread fast. Classmates whispered in hallways. Professors made awkward eye contact but said nothing. A few bold ones asked if I was doing okay, but their voices were edged with guilt, like they were only speaking up because it was too late to pretend they didn't know. And then my parents called. My mother's voice was sharp with worry, but not the kind I needed. "Why didn't you tell us earlier?" she snapped. "We looked like fools throwing that party." That's what she led with. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "How could Ashley do this to you?" "You looked like fools," I repeated. "I had my work stolen, and you're worried about the damn party?" "You could have told us," she insisted. "I did tell Ashley," I said, voice low and trembling with restrained fury. She looked me in the eye and told me she needed it more than I did. My father got on the line. "It's messy now, public. We just want to fix this before it damages anyone permanently." "Anyone being Ashley," I said, "not me." There was a pause. "She's your sister," he said finally, as if that explained everything. "I know exactly who she is," I replied. "The problem is, you don't." I hung up. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about choosing myself. The days that followed were surreal. Ashley finally reached out, if you could call it that. A single text, 3 words, "You happy now?" No apology, no explanation, just venom. I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen, and then deleted the message without replying. She wasn't sorry, she was embarrassed, exposed, and like always, she blamed me for making her look bad instead of taking responsibility for what she did. But something strange happened next. People started reaching out, not just to gossip, but to apologize. A girl in our year who had once snubbed me in a group project sent a long message saying she never realized how often you got overlooked. A TA offered to write me a letter of recommendation. Even Professor Langley emailed me saying he had advocated strongly for my work in faculty meetings. It didn't fix everything, but it lit a fuse. For the first time in my life, people were listening, and I wasn't done speaking. The university's official statement came out on a Wednesday. It was 2 paragraphs long, buried at the bottom of an email blast, sandwiched between reminders about library hours and cafeteria renovations. It didn't name Ashley, but it was clear who it referred to. They used words like academic misconduct and revocation of award, and added that disciplinary action has been taken in accordance with university policy. That was it. No apology to me, no public correction, no acknowledgement of what I had endured, how I'd been erased and humiliated. But at least the record was corrected. Ashley's name vanished from the Innovators Showcase website. The article featuring her was pulled. When you searched her name now, the tech blog's expose ranked first. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't enough, but it was something. And something was more than I'd had before. The next week, I got a call from a recruiter at a local health tech startup. She'd seen the article, the original one about the plagiarism, not the university's sanitized email, and wanted to know if I was the real developer behind the app. We talked for 20 minutes. She was blunt, professional, and impressed. I told her I hadn't planned to commercialize the project yet. She said, maybe you should. That sentence lived in my head for days. Meanwhile, Ashley's fallout was just beginning. She tried to pivot, of course, tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that she had collaborated with me and that I had gotten confused when she took the lead. That narrative might have worked on people who didn't know me, but our classmates knew better. So did her professors, and no one forgot the screenshots. Some people tried to stay neutral, others dropped her fast. Our parents, predictably, straddled the line like cowards. They didn't take sides publicly, but I heard through a cousin that my mom had tried to pitch the idea that both girls were brilliant and things got blown out of proportion. It didn't work. I didn't want a war, but I wasn't going to hide. I started sharing my work on LinkedIn, posting devlogs, updates, the origin story of the app, not to drag Ashley, but to take up space, the space that had always been mine. For once, people listened, people responded. I was invited to speak on a student panel, got featured in a podcast. My name, my real name, started getting attached to the app. And then came the fundraiser. One of the clinics I'd worked with during the development phase reached out and asked if I'd help pitch the app in a health equity initiative. It was a nonprofit partnership aiming to fund new tech that helped underserved communities. They loved the app, wanted to back it, but they needed someone to present it at a public event, to speak, to stand on a stage. The old me would have hesitated, but the new me, the one who had been stolen from and erased and had climbed back anyway? She said yes. I spent a week preparing my pitch, rewriting and rewriting until I could say every word in my sleep. I didn't tell anyone in my family. I wasn't doing this for their approval anymore. I wasn't doing it to prove I was better than Ashley. I was doing it because I was the creator, the builder, the one who bled for this project. And I deserved to be seen. The event was held in a downtown community center, small, warm, packed with energy. As I stood at the mic, staring out at a sea of expectant faces, I felt the nerves kick in, and then vanish. This app was built during long nights and longer doubts, I began. It was coded through imposter syndrome, sleeplessness, and silence, but it was built with care. It was built to connect people who don't always get access to care, and it was built entirely by me. Afterward, people came up to shake my hand, ask questions, take my card. The nonprofit pledged to fund a pilot version for rollout next quarter. I walked out of that room feeling like something had shifted permanently, like I had stepped out of the shadow. I got home to find a message from my dad. It was short. "Your mother and I saw the video. You did well. Maybe we can talk soon." I stared at it for a long time. There was no mention of the past. No acknowledgement of their part in the silence, the complicity. Just the suggestion of peace, offered like a bone. I didn't reply. Not yet. I wasn't ready to walk back into their world, not until they learned to speak the truth out loud without expecting me to carry their shame in silence. Ashley, meanwhile, stayed quiet. She hadn't contacted me again since the "You happy now" text. Her Instagram went private. Her name didn't come up on campus anymore. From what I'd heard, she was taking time off to reset. I didn't care. Honestly, because I wasn't chasing retribution anymore. I was busy building something real, and this time, no one was going to take it from me. Success feels different when it's earned in silence. There's no applause, no champagne toast, just the slow, satisfying click of recognition settling into place where doubt used to live. But for every new door that opened, the one that led back home stayed bolted shut. My parents didn't understand what had happened. Not really. They understood public embarrassment, they understood reputation. But the betrayal, the years of being second best, the theft of something sacred, that was invisible to them. Because to them, I was invisible. After the fundraiser, there were more opportunities. A guest lecture at the university, a collaboration proposal from a local NGO, even a phone call from a venture fund that wanted to explore commercial options. I was climbing steadily, quietly, but with each step, I felt the weight of what had been stolen. Not just the project, but the years I spent fading into the background, making myself small so Ashley could shine. It wasn't just about the app. It never had been. I started noticing things I'd once shrugged off. The Christmas when Ashley got the DSLR camera she mentioned once, while I unwrapped socks and a self-help book I hadn't asked for. The birthday party where she got a banner and balloons and I got a cake that said "Happy Birthday" with my name scribbled in icing like an afterthought. The way my parents lit up when she entered a room and how their eyes skimmed over me like I was furniture. Those memories weren't small. They were scars. And now, in the aftermath, I saw them for what they were. A pattern. People like to romanticize family as unbreakable. Blood is thicker, they say. But I was bleeding, and no one even noticed. One afternoon, while sorting through old photos to submit for a university profile on Alumni Innovators, I found a picture from high school. Ashley and I standing side by side at a science fair. She's beaming. I'm holding a plaque. It's mine. First place. But she's in front, angled toward the camera. I'm half out of frame. That photo had been framed and displayed on the mantle for years. I used to look at it and think, how proud they must have been. Now I looked at it and thought, how easy it was for them to crop me out of my own story. Later that evening, my mom called again. I let it ring. She followed up with a text. We'd like to have dinner. Just talk. It's been too long. No mention of Ashley, no mention of what they had ignored, just a vague blanket invitation as if enough time had passed to pretend everything was fine. But time doesn't erase silence, it amplifies it. Still, something tugged at me, not forgiveness, not guilt. But Lily, my younger cousin, was graduating high school soon, and we'd always been close. If I cut my parents out entirely, I cut her off too. And Marcus, an uncle on my dad's side, had sent me a quiet email saying he'd been following my journey and was impressed. That mattered. Not everyone in that house had failed me. So I replied, I'll come, but I won't pretend. If you want the truth, I'll bring it. My mother responded, we want you. That's all. The dinner was awkward from the start. The table was set like it was Christmas, all overcompensation and fake warmth. My father poured wine I didn't ask for. My mother complimented my outfit like she hadn't gone silent when I was humiliated in front of the entire school. Ashley wasn't there. We thought it might be better to keep things simple, my dad said when I asked. I nodded. Probably for the best. We ate in near silence. The clink of silverware filled the space where apologies should have gone. Finally, halfway through dessert, my mother spoke. You've been doing well, she said. We're proud. Now? I asked. When the school press writes about me? When strangers post LinkedIn praise? That's what it took? She looked wounded. That's not fair. It's honest. My father cleared his throat. We made mistakes, but we didn't know. You didn't want to know, I interrupted. You never asked what I was working on, never listened. Ashley told you something and you believed it because that's what you always do. I'm sorry, my mom said quietly. Those two words cracked the facade. I needed you to say that when I was 18 and you forgot my award banquet. I needed you to say that when I showed you my portfolio and you changed the subject to Ashley's internship. I needed you to say that when your daughter stole my work and you blamed me for making a scene. She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes, but they weren't mine to comfort. I don't hate you. I added, but I don't trust you either. Not yet. Dinner ended soon after. On the way out, my dad handed me a box of my old things: school projects, certificates, drawings from a childhood that now felt like someone else's. I took it without a word. That night, I sat in my apartment with the box on my lap. At the bottom was a crumpled folder, my middle school essay about becoming a doctor. A dream I'd let go of when I realized tech could help people in ways I hadn't imagined. Scrawled in red ink on the cover was my mother's comment. Ashley wrote something similar. Maybe you two should collaborate. I stared at it for a long time. Then I fed it, slowly and deliberately, into the shredder. I wasn't anyone's shadow anymore. Ashley never apologized. Not in words, not in silence, not in any form that resembled accountability. She disappeared like a stain soaked into fabric, visible only when the light hit it right. After the university revoked her award, she withdrew from classes, citing mental health reasons through a carefully curated statement on social media. Her post was dressed in vague apologies and loaded phrases like unintentional oversight and overwhelming pressure to succeed. It garnered sympathy. People commented with heart emojis and stay strong messages. Some even dared to tag me, asking if I felt better now. Better? I didn't feel better. I felt real. There's a difference between healing and vindication. Healing is personal, silent. Vindication is external. It's other people finally catching up to the truth you've known all along. I had both now, but better? There was too much left unspoken. One afternoon, months after the fallout, I got a DM from a burner account. No profile picture, no bio, just a message. You never would have gotten that far without me. I didn't have to ask who it was. Ashley had always been clever in the most dangerous way, smart enough to manipulate, but not wise enough to stop when she was ahead. I didn't respond. I didn't block her either. I left it there, unread but visible, like a preserved fossil. Proof of who she really was. The world might forget. But I wouldn't. The truth is, Ashley believed she deserved to succeed more than I did. And worse, our parents fed that belief, spoon-fed it with every "you're just different from your sister," and every time they dismissed my quiet victories in favor of her noisy ones. She wasn't the product of a personality flaw. She was the product of a system I was raised in, one where ambition was praised louder than integrity, and volume counted more than value. That realization didn't bring peace. It brought clarity. One weekend, I visited Kevin, an old mentor from my internship days. He'd heard about the whole ordeal and invited me to speak with his new batch of junior developers. "You've been through fire," he said, handing me a coffee. "They could use someone who knows how to stand in the ashes and still build." So I spoke, not about Ashley, not directly, but about what happens when your work is stolen, when the people who should defend you are the first to doubt you, when speaking up feels like breaking a code of silence so deeply embedded you don't even know it's there until you snap it in two. They listened, eyes wide. Some of them took notes. Afterward, one of the interns approached me, a girl with tight curls and too many books in her arms. "I just want to say, that happened to me. Not the same, but similar. My cousin copied my research and got into the program I was aiming for. My parents said, at least someone made it. Like I should be proud." She said it like she'd been holding it in her throat for years. I nodded, not offering advice, just understanding. Sometimes that's all anyone needs. That conversation stayed with me for days, because it made something clear. What happened to me wasn't unique. It was universal, just rarely spoken about. People like me were always told to get over it, to not make a fuss, to understand they didn't mean to hurt you. And if you did speak up, you were bitter, emotional, dramatic. But what Ashley did wasn't drama. It was theft. And what my parents did wasn't confusion. It was neglect. The difference mattered. I started writing about it, not just for catharsis, but to document articles, blog posts, a mini-series on ethical boundaries in collaborative environments. It wasn't about dragging names. It was about building language for people who had been through it and didn't have the words. The support was unexpected and overwhelming. Strangers emailed me. Students sent thank you notes. One professor used my story in a lecture about academic integrity. And finally, a publisher reached out. "We'd love a longer piece." the editor said. Something personal, honest. We think it'll resonate. I didn't hesitate. The essay I wrote was titled Invisible Until It's Too Late. It went viral, not because it was angry, but because it was true. Because too many people had felt that sting of being passed over, of being told to be quiet while someone else turned their work into applause. Ashley's name was never mentioned, but everyone who needed to know knew. Weeks later, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten. The handwriting was familiar in the worst way. It was from Ashley. I read your article, it began. I see how you painted yourself as the hero. That's fine, that's your story. But just so you know, I did what I had to do, and I'd do it again. Because no one ever remembers the person behind the code. They remember the face in front of the camera. No apology. Just a confession with fangs. I folded the letter and filed it away next to her DM. One day, maybe I'd burn them both. But for now, they were reminders. Of what I survived. Of what I refused to become. There's something surreal about starting over with the truth on your side. You don't feel invincible, just undeniable. I wasn't trying to outshine Ashley anymore. I wasn't trying to prove anything to my parents. I was simply moving in a direction that no longer required their validation. After the viral essay, more doors opened. Not glamorous ones, not million-dollar deals, but steady, promising, earned ones. One of the health clinics I'd partnered with during my project asked if I'd consider building out a community-based version of the app for broader use. They offered a modest grant and space to work. It wasn't flashy, but it was meaningful. I said yes, and for the first time, I brought on a team, not classmates, not people looking for a spotlight, just 3 developers who genuinely believed in the mission. We sat in mismatched chairs, drank bad coffee, and talked late into the night about how to make health data not just accessible, but understandable. We weren't just coding, we were building something that felt alive. This was what it should have felt like all along, not standing alone in the shadow of someone louder, not clinging to scraps of acknowledgement. Just doing the work on my own terms. It was during one of those long nights that I realized I hadn't thought about Ashley in days. Not her voice, not her threats, not even her absence. That was the real freedom. Meanwhile, my relationship with my parents stayed quiet, cordial at best. I didn't shut them out completely, but I didn't let them back in fully either. They sent updates about cousins, pictures from vacations, the occasional proud of you text that rang hollow after years of selective blindness. I responded when I had the energy. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. Tired of hoping for something different from people who had shown me, repeatedly, who they were. My healing came in smaller places. It came when I watched Lily demo the app in front of our new interns and call it cool as hell. It came when our test rollout helped a local clinic improve appointment attendance by 23%. It came when I laughed, really laughed in the office, realizing I had gone an entire day without second-guessing myself. This was what rebuilding looked like. No fanfare, no apology press conference, just bricks laid slowly, carefully in the right direction. Sometimes I still wondered if Ashley would ever reach out again, really reach out, with a real apology, a real reckoning. But I knew better. Some people don't come back to say they're sorry. They come back to see if you'll still let them in, and I wouldn't. Not this time. Not ever. It was almost a year to the day from the plagiarism scandal when the official invitation arrived. The university was hosting a tech alumni gala. They were honoring developers whose work had contributed significantly to social innovation. My name was listed among the honorees, not Ashley's. Mine. The same department that had once ignored my project, the same administration that quietly tried to scrub their mistake, now wanted me to speak. Part of me wanted to decline, to stay silent, build quietly, and leave that chapter closed. But another part, the one that remembered the sting of being left out of Ashley's celebration, the one that sat alone in my apartment while they cut her cake, knew I had to go, not for revenge, for reclamation. The gala was everything hers had been and more, glittering, catered, attended by industry leaders and faculty and students looking for inspiration. This time I stood under the lights, no one else holding my work, No one speaking over me, no one editing me out of the photo. When I took the stage, I didn't talk about betrayal. I didn't mention Ashley. I didn't have to. I built something I believed in, I told the crowd. And for a while, I thought that would never be enough. That in order to be seen, I had to be louder, sharper, meaner. But I was wrong. Sometimes doing the work with integrity is the loudest thing you can do, because eventually the right people do hear it. Applause. Real this time. After the event, a student approached me, nervous, clutching a notebook. "I'm working on a similar app," they said. "It's not perfect yet, but would you look at it?" I took their notebook, smiled. Absolutely. That night, when I got home, there were no texts from Ashley, no interruptions from my parents, just silence and peace. I kicked off my shoes, poured myself a drink, and sat on the balcony watching the city buzz with possibility. It had taken so long to get here, but I was here now, not in the background, not behind the scenes. Here, seen, celebrated, and this time no one could take it from me.